Good evening, good afternoon. We're back at you again for an episode of Acez Academy weekly live calls here. And today I'm super excited. I have Josh Best joining us today, who has been a friend of mine, and I'd call him a mentor for a very long time. He worked with the same mortgage company I work with, maybe for about a decade. He did a lot of executive coaching when it came to like the DISC and personality tests and emotional intelligence. And I remember he always had these cool team building activities all the time that he would run with leaders where I'd walk out of the room and I'd feel truly closer to the leaders. And I'd take that same exact activity and I would go run it with my team, and my team would love it. And we get truly closer together. So we had so much great activities that he would always run for us. And then we lost contact for a while and we both went our separate paths. And I thought about him the other day and I said, man, I'd love to run some of those activities again. And I feel like a lot of the places I've been going to are missing those strong team building and bonding exercises that really incorporate a championship team and culture. And those same exact tactics he talks about building a strong team and a strong relationship between team members and leaders is the same exact thing that applies to clients on the phone and different personality types with your clients and how to realize that. So the guy's been around a ton of sales industries. He has a ton of experience. I want to welcome Josh Best to the show here. Are you out there, Josh?
Oh, there we go.
All right, we could
All
hear
right.
you.
Oh, and we're on the wrong camera. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. All right. How are you?
Good, man. How you been? Long time.
Yes, indeed. It has been, but we like you said, we come full circle with these things, and it's been a really interesting run and a great experience, but glad to be back and see you again for sure.
Yeah, no, I pulled out the old Johnny Blue for you today, bro.
There we go. That's the right thing.
It was one of those days where, I said, you know what? I've been working hard, working long hours. Why not fucking just open this thing and just salute to you? So cheers to you and everybody on.
Yes, thank you.
Josh, sometimes I say to myself, you can't lose creative space, and I feel like sometimes I lose that creative inventory where you have just time and space to really think about things. And I think a lot of times we get so caught up and overwhelmed and running that we don't stop and think, how could I really create a better process for myself? How's my life going right now? How could I make things easier? How'd last week go? How's my family life, business life? What ideas could I incorporate to 2024? So I usually always like to take 10 days, 15-day bender at the end of the year and strictly just go straight into deep thinking. And I'm going to do that next week in Miami for Thanksgiving. So I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to have you. So we worked in the mortgage industry together. Right now, you're an executive and career coach. You're helping individuals and teams realize their potential through an assessment of services that focus on identity, building, and practicing skills to help you become the best version of yourself, which is my mission statement in life. Become the best version of yourself and raise that version daily. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what brings you here today.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, worked in the mortgage industry for the better part of a decade, but I was loosely related to sales. I worked in leadership development for 8 of those 10 years, working with executives at the organization, and then through that, was working with our DISC profiles and a 360 assessment called the Leadership Circle Assessment, and then I spent the last 2 years there leading sales training for all of our third-party origination group, which was great to get to know brokers from across the U.S. and understand their unique needs and some of the sales challenges they came across. And so when I left there, among other things, I started my own company working in that space, so that executive and leadership coaching. It's called Three Arrows Coaching. What I say is I specialize with the folks who don't believe that they need coaching. That's my niche, because every organization and every place that offers assistance like coaching has a portion of the folks, and they often sit in the sales department, that say, I don't need this. And I'm your guy for those folks. And the reason for that is I think I take a pretty non-traditional approach to coaching and a non-traditional traditional approach to behavior change. Before I worked in the mortgage industry and in corporate America, I spent 10 years working in nonprofit with kids in the court system. And so folks that have a very similar mindset to people who go into sales. And when I say that, I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean, these are some of the greatest people that I've ever met in my life. They are some of the deepest and most interesting individuals, and they have the strongest friendships and networks when they choose to let somebody in. And they also have a win at all costs mindset, which I think is very beneficial. They chose to deploy those skills in one way. I think sales folks choose to deploy them in a different way. But after essentially 2 decades of working with that mentality, I think that I've come to understand how individuals can change behavior even when behavior change seems scary. And that, I think, is ultimately where we land often is that behavior change, because if I change what I'm doing and what has made me successful, there's risk. And we are wired from back when we were lizards that we want to avoid risk. And so we choose to take risk head on, and I help folks do that.
Awesome, man. The first thing I think about as you're talking is there's people that, sometimes we say to ourselves, and even I'm guilty of this, maybe like, some of our traditional parents, uncles, aunts. Do you think it's ever too late to change a behavior for somebody who's very traditional, maybe older in age? Maybe we're talking about the last generation before us.
I don't think it's ever too late to change a behavior. I think that anybody is capable of behavior change. I think any behavior change. I guess I'll ask you a question. When you pull up to a stoplight, what do you do?
Probably either look at my phone or think about something I'm thinking about a little deeper.
But what's the first thing that you do when you pull up to a stoplight? The light turns red. What do? You probably stop at the light, right?
Stop. Yeah,
That's
if you drive a Tesla, there is no brakes, so you just don't hit.
you just
Stop.
drift.
Yeah.
But most folks who are non-Tesla drivers are going to stop at that light. And the reason, and the reason that they do that, whenever I ask this question, I say, why do you stop at the light? And they say, I don't want to get hit, or I don't want someone to hit me, or I don't want to get a ticket, or sometimes I don't stop, right? And that perfectly illustrates the point of when you pull up to a stoplight and you stop, you give all these reasons. All of that is bullshit. The reason that you stop at that light is because you make a choice to take your foot off of the gas and apply it to the brake. Everything that happens after that choice is a positive or negative consequence of making that choice. And so I think the same is true for behavior change. I think that everybody's capable of it. I don't think that everybody will make the choice to do it.
Got it. And what do you think are some of the strongest behavior traits for, let's start with great salespeople?
I think great salespeople, the number one trait for them is, you've heard the old quote of, we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. It's so that you can listen twice as much as you talk, right? Great salespeople are ultimately listeners. And I know that that runs a little bit counter to what we're trained, because in sales, we're trained, control the conversation, talk and gain buy-in, influence, persuade, all of those amazing things. But every great salesperson, the ones that are prolific, the ones that are in the history books, are folks that listen more than they talk, so that when they talk, it is twice as impactful than if they're just talking to talk.
So listening would be that trait.
Yeah, I think that's number one for salespeople.
And when it goes to great leaders, senior leaders, team leaders, sales leaders, what are some of the greatest behaviors you find in these folks?
I think the people that I've worked with over time, and the individuals that I would qualify as great. And let's talk about what a great leader is before we answer that question. A great leader is not just somebody who can meet the numbers, right? We see leaders that can meet the numbers all the time. A great leader is an individual who can inspire past their immediate circle of team members, and inspire action and influence the way that somebody behaves outside of their immediate circle. And so we've all seen leaders. Everybody on this call has seen leaders that do a great job of motivating and inspiring the people who are directly connected to them. The question is, can you influence outside of that? When I talk about great leaders, I talk about folks who, I'm doing a podcast now where I have people quoting this one individual leader. I've interviewed hundreds of people, and probably 50% of them have quoted this one leader, right? That is influence outside of your immediate circle. The choices that you make and the things that you do influence outside of that. And so I think to get to that level of leadership, I think what's really important for somebody to do is, and this comes from a book called The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. And this is gonna strike some of your listeners maybe in not the greatest way, but we're gonna go there. I think the three biggest things that a great leader does: number one, be lazy; number two, be curious; and number three, be often. And so what do I mean by that? Be lazy. When I say that to people who are high energy type A sales folks, they get real freaked out by that. They clench up, and if they don't have a Johnny Walker Blue in their hand, they might get a little bristly with me, right? Um, what I mean by that is you've hired an entire team of people to do work. And the habit that I see from sales leaders more often than not, especially new sales leaders, folks that are brand new to this, is I try to run my new thing like I ran my old thing. And so I try to run my sales team the way that I ran my business. And those two things, that's impossible. You cannot do that. And so when I say be lazy, what I mean is let the people that you've hired to do the work, and lead through influence. Lead the way that you can get them to do something that they couldn't do without your influence. And so in order to do that, you can't do the work for them. They have to try and fail and do the work on their own. And then your job is to pick up, correct, identify gaps, and fix that problem with your team member. It is not to do the work for them. Any sales leader can reach numbers for a short amount of time by doing the work for their team members. And so I've seen leaders that just become a salesperson with 12 secretaries, right? And that's because they're going to burn out. That's unsustainable behavior. In my coaching, that's what I talk a lot about, is what is sustainable versus unsustainable. There is no right and wrong. There's sustainable and unsustainable. So that's be lazy. Number two, be curious. Ask a lot of questions. If as a sales leader, you go through an entire day and you never say anything that ends with a period, you probably had a good day of challenging people and asking the right questions. And
Mhm.
number three, be often. Do that a lot. Do it more than you think that you should, because to you it's going to seem like a lot, but if you ask one question to every person on your team, you have now asked 15 to 20 questions. Your people have gotten one question each. So when I say be often, your people should be getting 10, 12, 15 questions a day from you, which means that you're asking hundreds of questions a day, right? That is how you can engage, support, and influence at larger levels: is be lazy, be curious, and be often.
That's a drop bomb button right there, man. I think wow. I mean, things that I've been preaching and training for years just fall into those three buckets that you just mentioned. Let's start with the be lazy.
Yeah.
A lot of teams out there, they are super salespeople with 12 assistants,
Mm-hmm.
taking headsets and closing deals, because at the end of the day, although it's really the path of the most resistance, they see it as a path of least resistance, because it's a quick, easy fix to solve for right now, but not solve for the future.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of times I say the best leaders in the industry are the leaders that leave their team and their team still sustains high numbers or better numbers than when their leader is there, showing that that doesn't mean that you don't need your leader. That means that your leader's built a pretty solid team that
Mm-hmm.
functions with or without them, other than the one-offs that really don't make impact at all and their team just stays the same with or without them. My question to you is, I'm probably consulting around 20, 25 companies right now, specifically in mortgages.
Mm-hmm.
And I would be lying to you if I told you the companies that are the top three, top four is all leadership involvement, not in a teaching way and snatching headsets, closing deals. The leaders are in the middle of the floor. They're impacting. If they do 15 deals a day, 13 of them went through the leaders.
Yeah.
Um, how would you draw the line, between the two, between like, I want to have a kick-ass day, a kick-ass month. The leaders are involved. They're in the middle. They're creating momentum. There is something special about momentum and the leaders being
Mm-hmm.
involved, because salespeople see that. The salespeople stand up. They start selling. My leaders are in the trenches. I think that's powerful, right? I
Mhm.
don't think it lasts long term, but how do you see it for leaders that are doing it now to sustain high numbers and survive this market with them right in the front lines?
I don't think that you can. I don't think that I think the folks that rely on that as the only mechanism for success are going to struggle. As the market gets more difficult, they are going to struggle. There's an old quote, and it actually came from Freud, who was a psychologist, and he was walking by the first ever automated car wash, like automatic car wash. You drive your car through, the car washes it for you. And he said, wow, that's an incredibly complex machine built for only one purpose. And this is where the quote came from, that if the only tool that you have is a hammer, then everything starts to look like a nail, right? And so when we think about those leaders that rely too heavily or rely only on their involvement getting deals done, that's an unsustainable form of behavior. These are often the folks that you see, and I'll just talk real with your people. These are often the folks that you see that are in the middle of their third or fourth, relationship and divorce, in the middle of some sort of substance abuse issue, in the middle of some other issue that is causing them problems. And the reason for that is because when the only tool that you have is a hammer, everything begins to look like a nail. And so if you begin to develop other tools, you can have something that's more sustainable. I put so much energy into sustaining my sales team and their numbers that I don't have energy for anything outside of that in my life, right? And so if we can develop different systems and we can change behavior and we can delay gratification just a little bit, because that's the other thing that I'll be real with you, that most folks that get into sales will find that instant gratification works really well for them. I want the thing, and so I get the thing, right? And the delayed gratification will serve you for a longer amount of time. Do you ever see those leaders, Alex, that you see them and they just seem to be floating around on a cloud, like nothing can touch them? These are the folks who have developed systems that will work even when they're not there, like you talked about. These are the folks that have put in place first followers and sub leaders and folks that they trust, have built and know can handle things when they're not around. These are leaders that have systems that they don't have to be the one to go stand on a chair in the middle of the floor to get energy out of their folks, because they've built a culture that brings energy in the door. And we don't see that everywhere.
Amen. And you're talking about high level leaders. I think there's levels to this shit, as they say.
Mm-hmm.
I think the level that I'm talking about is probably the first level. It's mostly newer leaders, younger leaders that go this route, and it typically ends up in burnout
Yeah.
and lost relationships because they're not focused on the relationships or the culture. So it pretty much turns out in either burnout or negative feedback from the team because it's not a great culture or great relationships being built. Now, I would just say one thing as a pattern interrupt or a tactic or to get the month started. I think it's okay on the first of the month. I think it's okay for a leader to come to somebody who's struggling, take the headset, help them find a win, build momentum. I think strategically it's okay. What you're saying
100%.
is it shouldn't be your only avenue. If that's how you get success, everything has to go through you because that's not going to last very long.
Correct. If again, coming back to that metaphor, if I try to build a house and the only tool I bring with me is hammer and nails, that's going to be a really shitty house, right? But if
Yeah.
I bring a screwdriver and a nail gun and the right shingles and a caulk gun and a saw, and I bring all of those tools, maybe I'm only using my hammer 1/10 of the time, and it's going to be a better house. I think the same is true for sales leaders. That is a tool. That level of motivation, that stand on the desk, that take the headset, get a deal for somebody, 100%, that is a tool, and it is there to be used, and it can be successful. When that becomes the only way you can get deals in the door, it's going to be unsuccessful.
100%. And then you said be curious. And you
Mhm.
know, the funny thing about being curious is I've been practicing this exercise with leaders and salespeople for that matter. I mean, for leaders, I've been practicing asking open-ended questions with your team member,
Mhm.
right? Like, for example, if somebody comes in late, right? The typical response is, why the hell are you late? We give them shit. I need to get 2 deals out of you today. Get to your desk, get to work. When if we just ask, hey, what's going on? And the person says, oh, nothing, I'm just ran late. Sorry about that. What happened? Well, slept late last night. Why did that happen? Well, because I had some family issues. What kind of family issue? And like you just start asking open-ended questions, you
Mhm.
could unlock so much more. The issue is it's a path of most resistance because it takes the extra 8 minutes. And I was guilty of this as a leader myself. Somebody would come in late, somebody needs help, somebody needs to talk about something personal. Like, give me the thing and let's get out of here. Let me give you the solution and move. Give you the solution and move. Give you this. I learned over time because I had leaders that you probably know that asked me open-ended questions where I almost hated the activity, where I was like, I didn't want to go back in there because it was very uncomfortable from how many open-ended questions a leader would ask. But I was also amazed by the leader's patience while asking me open-ended questions. Here, I thought I was busy. I have a leader 2 levels above me sitting down with his legs crossed, taking 40 minutes to ask me open-ended questions about why my team's performance was bad yesterday, making me really go so deep that it was uncomfortable. So after I dealt with this uncomfort myself, I learned the magic inside of that exercise. And I'm not saying it in a prickish way to go there and give people a hard time. I'm saying it to really seek to understand. Ask questions to seek to understand with your team members and with salespeople on the phones.
Mhm.
On the phones. This is where the dreams are. This is where the gold is. It's not surface level. It's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 layers. I give a lot of analogies about this, Josh. I call it open doors. You open up one door, opens up three. You open up the three, they open up six. You open up six, they open up nine. By the end of the call, one simple question like, how are you enjoying retirement life, turns into 27 questions and 33 stories,
Mhm.
because you were curious. So, man, I couldn't agree more with curious. I think that's one thing that people are not curious enough. They're in a rush. They're in a rush to coach. They're
Mhm.
in a rush to when they talk to their people. They're in a rush to leave for the day. They're in a rush to get in. They're in a rush on the highway. They're in a rush in the gym. There is no real quality, patience, and
Mhm.
time. And I think that's where all the real gold is found. You find that in the situation. You find the best leaders are very calm and patient and talk with a slow pace when they're trying to get some information or help you out. So I just wanted to just throw that in there. As far as curiosities, it's been one of the things I've been preaching for leadership and sales. And I still find it the majority are not being patient. I hope you're enjoying the video. I wanted to remind you, we got Acez Academy community, weekly sales calls every single week with different guests, including myself, teaching you topics you want to learn, along with sales, mindset, and leadership virtual training and consulting. Sign up in the link in the bio, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the video.
Yeah.
Even if I talk to them about it and tell them, so why don't we start with that? I mean, you do behavior. How do I change somebody's behavior to make them ask more questions in sales, even though I talked to them about it a couple of times? I gave
Mhm.
them one-liners. I showed them how to share stories. Let them listen to call clips. For leaders, same thing. I practiced the activity with them, brought their team member in, showed them how it sounds. Then I still see them dropping the gun and going straight to the solution or straight to the get your ass to work and not really going deep. How do I work on changing that behavior?
Yeah, I think the behavior there that needs to change is I can't speak to it for every individual that's in that situation, but
Yeah, in general.
yeah, in general, um a couple of strategies. It comes back to asking questions and being curious. I think you said something important as well, that idea of slowing down. And as their leader, if you hear one of your salespeople on the phone and you're thinking, wow, this is going terribly, that's an invitation for you as a leader to explore what you haven't done for them, because the time to coach and help somebody actually get better is not when they're on the phone with the client. That's the result of all the work that you've put in, that you're witnessing. And I think that's where sales leaders get really freaked out, is they're seeing the result of the effectiveness of their coaching, training, and leading when that banker is, or when that person is on the phone with the client. And the result is good or bad. And so it doesn't matter what you do in that moment, because none of that is going to stick. They're in a state of panic. They're in flight or flight. No new information is sticking in their brain while you're coaching them while they're on the phone, right? And so then it's an invitation to say, okay, what do I need to do differently when we hang up with this client, with this individual? Two powerful questions that I have found effective with almost everybody that I work with. Number one, do you have everything you need to be successful in this role? asking your team member, the person that reports to you, the question, do you have everything that you need to be successful in this role, is one of the most powerful questions that you can ask, because it's an examination question. It's an open-ended question that forces them to think, how could I be more successful? What would I need to make that happen? And then they start to change the behavior on their own. Right? If you think about quitting smoking, if you've ever tried to quit smoking because your wife told you to, or your husband told you to, or you want to do it because your doctor is going to yell at you, you know that you're statistically less likely to quit smoking because it's somebody else's responsibility than if you say, I no longer want to identify as a smoker. And so, as a leader, your job is to get people motivated to make the change on their own, not rely on you to change them. Right. And so I think that that's question number one, is do you have everything that you need to be successful in this position? I think the second question that becomes really powerful is, what don't I know that I probably should, about you, about your world, about your skill, about the things that you have and don't have? What don't I know that I probably should? And again, it's an open-ended question that invites exploration, and it takes more time, but slow is smooth, smooth is fast. If I take time in the front end to help people get better and improve their skill, then I save 20 minutes per call where I've got to have the headset on listening. If I'm listening to one of my salespeople, I'm shutting off 12 to 15 of them. The net loss of you being bad at coaching is exponential, because, oh, I don't want to take this 8 minutes right now to help them get better. Bullshit. You're going to take 8 minutes times 15 people to sit on their call with them, because you can't leave them because they're going to pooch the deal. Right.
Yeah.
So when you talk about exponential loss, that's what we talk about. Future value drops to zero on a long enough timeline.
So you're saying if you're going to coach, make sure it's worth it, because you're already losing enough by investing that time into the coaching.
Yeah, you're going to do the work one way or the other. If you want to think about doing the highest net gain work, the highest net gain work is be patient and invite questions from each individual when they're not on the phone. It feels like it takes longer, and it's going to feel like bad the first time that you do this. I guarantee you, leaders that will listen to this will say, that's not going to be faster. It's not going to be more efficient. I invite you to try it for a week. Try for a week, spending time off the phone with your people, invest more time than you think you should, ask nothing but questions, and then see your people get better on the phone, and watch. In call blocks and times where everybody's on the phone, you have to do so little that you can actually focus on the business, and you can focus on finesse. You don't have to fix big problems. You can note small problems to discuss later. Make sure that you're incorporating your coaching into the day-to-day, but don't do it. It's not effective while they're on the phone. Again, it's a tool.
Yeah. So I have something that I call the training wheels play.
Mm,
And what that is I tell leaders, essentially you have four wheels. And the first time you could keep all four wheels on there and you could do the job for them.
mhm,
Whether that's doing something technology wise, whether that's taking a phone call and closing the deal, you do it for them. And then I say the second time, you may do it for them again, but you have them take notes this time.
mhm.
Right. And then share those notes with you, share them to the team, really squeeze the lemon out of the activity and let them have some ownership and have other people learn. Because I always say, coach one people, coach 10 people, coach 20 people, coach 30, coach as many people with one interaction as you can. Right. I
Mhm.
spread around coaching. If I coach one person, I'm like, hey, did you hear about that? You hear about that? And I start spreading rumors about the coaching because I want everybody to learn from the coaching. So I say the second time they do that. The third time, they take the headset or they get on the computer to do the technology or whatever it is, and
Mhm.
you coach them through it. The fourth time, you let them do it and you say, I got your back for emergencies. And the fifth time, all four wheels are off and they're on their own. And
Mhm.
I say you could accomplish mostly anything with a training wheels play. A lot of times we have problems because we stop and do the four wheels over again. Then we get to two wheels and we do the four wheels over again. And then like we never give them that ownership in the end.
Yeah,
So what
because
do you
that's
think about
scary.
that play?
I think it's good. I think that you have to see it all the way through to the end, though. Like to your point, all four training wheels have to come off, and that's our own fear that we have to get over. Because if I take all four wheels off and that person fails, there's risk there. Again, everything in our brains is wired to risk aversion. We want to get as far from risk as possible. And so if I take off wheel one and they fail, I'm going to put wheel one back on. If I take off wheel two and they fail, I'm going to put one and two back on. We're going to start it all over again, right? And so we have to be able to we have to be willing to let our people fail. I think that's the number one most important job of a leader, real talk, is can you figure out what are safe failures for your team members so that they can grow and learn from those failures and get better? I think that's what leaders try and do, is insulate their people from ever failing. And that's not reality. You can't grow in that environment, right? You have to fail. But as a leader, I always tell my team members that report to me, I tell them this. I say, listen, if you go bumper bowling, I've got a 5 and a 7-year-old. I do only bumper bowling right now, right? And so if you go bumper bowling, you know you can still hit one pin when you go bumper bowling. What you're not going to do is roll a gutter because the bumpers are up. That's my role as your leader. I'm never going to let you roll a gutter, but you're going to roll some ones and twos because you got to learn from how to throw the ball. You got to get better so that eventually we can take the bumpers down and you can bowl like a regular person, right? If
Yeah.
I don't take those bumpers down and I always just throw the ball down the middle for you, you're never going to learn. So I think that's the role of a leader, is calculating safe failure for your people.
I love that, man. So let's jump into some personality stuff, man. You do
Yeah.
these personality tests, these disc tests, you break it up into 4 different parts of the pie. Yes, man, it was so long ago, but you said there was
Mhm.
different ways that you motivate these people, speak to these people. What's a simple way to run this exercise with your people and your leadership team? What's a simple way for salespeople to realize this exercise with their clients? What's
Yeah.
your what's the best way to leverage this information? Even I forgot how to leverage this information and use it.
Yeah. So first and foremost, we're not going to do a whole disc lesson on the call here, but Google that DISC. It stands for the kind of 4 different dimensions of personality. Now, I also want to state there are 100 tools out there. All of them basically break people up into 4 different categories. So whatever tool resonates with you, use that one. DISC is not the end all be all. And the other thing that I'll state right out of the gate, if you've used any of these tools, you have dimension, you have pieces of every personality type. There are times where you can be analytical and there are times where you can be direct. It does not, and this is where I really caution salespeople, because salespeople and everybody will put someone in one category. They'll say, oh, that person's a D, and that's the only way they'll ever talk to them again, and they lose clients because of it. You have to remember that the people you're talking to are whole people and they have every dimension, but you can start to lean in with them on some specific behaviors. And so when we talk about disc, we talk about D being dominant. These are folks that are straight to the facts. They want to steamroll in a conversation. They don't want to spend much time. These aren't the people that you're going to small talk with and ask 10 questions out of the gate. These folks want answers. They want to know that you're working for them, and they want to know they can trust you. I are your influencers. These are the folks that you're going to spend 20 minutes running small talk. They're going to know everything about you. You're going to know everything about them because they're going to spend time talking with you about it. S stands for steady. Steady are your spreadsheet clients. These are the folks that you're going to present 3 options to, and they're going to have their spreadsheet right in front of them. They're going to put a column for each option, and they're going to walk through the numbers with you. And if the numbers table, the numbers table. And so yep, there we go. And then conscientiousness, the C. These are your folks that are they are analytical, they're precise, they're systematic, and what they do is they want to make sure that they are involving everybody in the right decision. So they're going to be highly analytical. They're not going to share a ton of opinions with you. These are going to be your folks, your quiet clients on the phone, and they're going to want to know. Again, bottom of this table are highly numbers oriented. Top of this table are highly people oriented, and so you want to be able to kind of that at its base is a great assessment to do. Is the person I'm talking to more of a people person or more of a numbers person, or task person? Then left and right, what we look at is, are they more direct and to the point? That's on the left side, the D and the C. Or are they more interested in conversation, context, and understanding? Those are the folks on the right. So as a salesperson, if I can, in the first 5 minutes of a conversation, if I can say, oh, this person is highly task oriented and very to the point, they don't like a lot of small talk, I right out of the gate know that this person is in that lower left, they are a C. And so I can respond to them. I can be the one that flexes and respond to them the way they need to be responded to. I'm going to talk facts, figures, numbers, and I'm going to keep it short, right? And so this is a great tool for starting to understand who people are and how you can respond to them. There is actually, from a company called Wiley, there is a class that you can take called Disc for Sales. I offer that class as part of my opportunities as well. But Disc for Sales specifically goes into what is your personality type, and then how do you specifically flex your personality to quickly assess and meet your clients where they are at.
I love that. I always talk about like visual learners, kinesthetic learners, audio
Mhm.
learners, figuring out who they are by what they say on the phone call. Was it like I saw all the reviews, they were horrible, maybe they're visual? Was it like it felt horrible last time the numbers change on me in process? Maybe they're
Mhm.
kinesthetic person, or was it like I'm sick of my phone ringing and hearing the damn ringtone? Are they like an audio person? And then connecting to them in that format. And I always tell salespeople, try all three and then figure out which one they are by trying to attract all three if you can't figure it out. And then same exact thing for training teams. I remember there was a time where every single huddle and meeting I would do with my team, I try to throw in something audio, something kinesthetic, and something visual.
Mhm.
And then I've been to meetings before that are talking for 45 minutes straight with none of the other things. And I'm like, holy smokes, this is a bad meeting.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep engagement these days. I mean, why do you think TikTok's blowing up,
Yep.
right? TikTok's taking over the world because it's number one, the first 2 seconds are the most important. We've
Mhm.
learned that already, right? The hook is the most important. So, like, if you're gonna put somebody in a meeting or put somebody through a phone call or a sales process, you got to be trying to entertain them, engage them, and keep them informed.
Yeah.
Sending a text, an email with a video, like different things, just being creative and out of the box. So I think all that connects. And yeah, I'll drop your information at the end here, but I know your Instagram, Joshua Best, right?
Yep.
And then the website is 3arrowscoaching.com with a number three.
Yep. Correct. Number three, arrowscoaching.com.
Beautiful.
You can check out what we offer and how we help.
Yeah, we'd love that. So for the leaders that they learn these personalities, how do they then leverage these personality types with their people? Because I'll be honest with you, I feel like a lot of leaders are one dimensional, as in they talk majority to the same, they deliver one message the same way to everybody. Do you believe that's the right way, or should they cater to different personalities?
I think that you have to do a little bit of both, because I think leaders get lost in a couple ways. Number one, they get lost trying to cater to everybody. If you're trying to deliver, 20 individual meals, then everybody's going to get hungry. And so I think you do have to have your core values, what your team stands for, the non-negotiables, the things that you walk into every day, and everybody knows this is the norm, this is the standard, and this is how we operate. Where the tailored approach can come in, and where disc and any kind of personality assessment can be really helpful, strengths finder is another great one, is okay, now we know what the baseline of operating is because of our norms and standards. Now there's going to be gaps. Some folks are going to be above what the norm is, some folks are going to be below, and some folks are going to be at. If I can quickly determine not only where your gap is, but how you best receive information, I'm going to be more successful at coaching you. And so, if I, as a leader, know that you are a high influence type of person, that person that loves small talk and wants to get to know me and feels before they get to task, then, and I know that you are below what our standards currently need to be, I'm going to tailor my conversation one way. If I know that you are a high D, you are only focused on direct action, you want small talk to a minimum, and you want to go, 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 and you are performing at expectations, that's a different way to have the exact same conversation. And so that's really, we have to establish the baseline and what is standard operating procedure. And then we have to, as leaders, understand what are the gaps and who are below, who are at, and who are above average. And then we can very easily tailor our conversation. It's a simple flow chart after that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It reminds me of like when there was a big change happening. And I know you've been working with companies that are changing technology,
Mhm.
and that could cause a lot of noise a lot of times, and get people riled up the wrong way. So I remember whenever there was a big important message, let's say a comp plan would change, or let's say technology would change, as a team leader, I would say, all right, so I got to talk to these two people first before I roll this message out to the team. Then I got to talk to the two influencers and make sure they have my back on this. Then
Mhm.
I got to talk to the one or two sensitive ones, make sure that they're going to be okay with this, and tell them how we're going to make this the best for them in their career. Then I release it to the team when already 25-30% of my team knows it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
Would you believe in that philosophy, as in getting your influencers on board, talking to the sensitive ones, like picking out the people that need a pep talk before releasing a message?
Yeah, I think with anything you've got to be cautious about how you do that. And if it, especially like around comp and that kind of thing, it becomes very sensitive. And so, what I look for, and just a simple rule to abide by there, is who are your effective first followers. The leader has no power without the first follower being in place. And sometimes these aren't like titled people, right? These are, to your point, the influencers on the team, the folks who know and know how to get people on board with even things that aren't great. Those are the folks I'm going to pull those folks into a room, one or two of them, and I'm going to say, hey, here's a message that I need to roll out to the team. I'm going to trust you with this message, and it can go no further than this room. Here's how I plan on rolling it out. Here's a couple of things. You go through your message, you talk about it. What feedback do you have on the way that I delivered that? How do you think my sensitive people are going to take it? How do you think this person's going to take it? And then you have two built-in advocates for your message. So you don't need to roll it out to anybody but those first followers, one or two people at most, and do it at the same time. I don't think you need to roll it out to anybody other than them, especially with highly sensitive messages. Then you roll it out to the team and you let your first followers go to work. They were on board at the ground level. They feel important because they were in there and getting the information first. And now you don't have to do anything through influence. You have just changed the dynamic of the way that that message is delivered, because you have two advocates for the message, second voicing what you talked about without you having to say a word, simply because you spent 8 minutes to pull them in a room. Do you see the theme here? We've saved a whole bunch of time fixing a problem of how we rolled something out because we spent a little extra time setting up the right way.
Yeah. And like everything in life connects. We talk about that all the time. Like the stuff you're saying right now, I tell leaders all the time. They tell me like, yeah, like this person really has a big ego. How would you deliver this message to them? I say like, get them involved in the message. They probably want ownership. Why don't you say, hey, I need your advice on this message. What do you think? How would you roll it out? Same exact thing with clients, like the clients that, Mr. Know-it-alls, they want to write things out. They have their calculators out, like get them involved, like, show them 3 options. Which one do you think? I'm really liking the things you're doing here. Make the client feel ownership on the solution. You're building it together. So you could use that trait with a lot of different things. I wanted to ask you real quick, and I know the answer to this, but I just want some people to hear it. I think it's necessary. I've been seeing it more and more as the market conditions get tougher. What do you think of, down talking your leaders as a senior leader, down talking your team members as a leader? What does that do long term, short term, talking down on people? I've been seeing it more and more in different industries, and I wanted to get your opinion on that, because for me, it's like a forbidden thing. It's not family like, it's not championship culture like. I understand sometimes it could be good for pressure, and you could have the relationship with somebody to push them if that's how they like to be pushed. But when you're seeing it in a place where I look at the team member, look at the leader, I know they're humiliated. To me, that causes disaster. What does that mean to you when you see those kind of things happen?
Yeah.
How do we stop those behaviors?
I think so. When you say down talking somebody, you're talking about like negative, like, hey, you messed this up. This is what and doing that in front of a group, like really getting at them, right? Yeah, that's so here's the thing. Imagine you walk into a building, and inside, right inside the door of that building, every single day, there's somebody who is either going to give you a high five or go ha like that and scare you, right? No matter what, no matter what, you are going to prepare to get scared walking in the door. Your shoulders are going to be up. They might high five you 9 times out of 10. Your brain is wired to prepare for that one time that they're going to scream at you, right?
Mm.
And so when we are a leader that does that to our team, then 100 times I could prop you out 100 times in 100 different ways. And the only thing that my brain is going to remember is the only thing I'm doing is preparing for the next attack. That's the way that we are wired. We are wired to avoid
That is
risk.
fucking horrible, man. That's worse than I thought.
That feels real, right? Like,
Yeah.
that feeling. That feeling
Yes.
of
Yes.
I'm gonna walk in here and I'm gonna get attacked today.
Yeah. Yeah. How do we change that behavior, you think?
I think it comes back to, and this is, I'm like the coach in Remember the Titans. 5 plays, like Novocaine, give it time, it always works. It comes back to what we talked about at the top. I'm a simple individual. I can only remember so many things. Be lazy, be curious, and be often. Instead of walking in, seeing a problem, pulling that person up in front of the group and just tearing them up, a different solution is to get into your curious mode. Really try to understand what was at the root of the behavior and ask that person a lot of questions. What was behind that? I saw you do this. Help me understand what thought led you to that being the best available option. Because here's the thing, nobody wants to come into work and be shitty at it every day. Nobody. Nobody wants to show up to work and be bad at it. And if you are a leader that is just reinforcing how bad somebody is at somebody, you're going to find yourself that people don't leave companies, they leave leaders. And when you have scared off all of your top performers, the only thing you are left with is the unemployable. Because you know who doesn't leave a shitty leader? Shitty team members, because they know they can't get a job somewhere else. And so what you do by doing that is you scare away all of your talent and you're left with the bottom performers.
Have to drop a bomb for you right there. That was fire. What are what's your take on onboarding process? How that's important for a new team member in sales and for a new promoted leader? How does the onboarding process play a role to you? I help companies build onboarding processes, and I just wanted to get your take on that.
Yeah. Onboarding has to be, and this is the research backs this, onboarding for adults has to be as much experiential as you can make it. And by that I mean how often can we have somebody doing the thing instead of just sitting in a room and learning about it? That's the issue with 80% of onboarding out there in the world right now. Is the way that I onboard you is I bring you into a room, I sit you in front of a screen, and I throw PowerPoints at you all day long so that you know how we operate, right? First of all, what a terrible way to bring somebody into an organization. We're exciting, we're cutting edge, we're all this stuff. Sit in this room and look at a screen for 8 days, right? That's not going to be successful. And so getting people into so splitting your onboarding between learn, practice, learn, practice. There should never be a module in your onboarding, and this is for leaders too, that is more than 45 minutes long. If you have anything that goes for more than 45 minutes, consider how you might break that up with practice in between. So for example, if I'm learning an intro call and I'm learning a strong intro with a client, right? I want to give them a call. I want to make sure that I gain control of that conversation in the first 2 minutes of the conversation. I can go over call scripts all day up on a PowerPoint screen. Unless I actually pick up a phone and start to practice the skill with somebody, I'm not going to remember it. And as an adult, it's not going to create new pathways in my brain. So it's going out the window. And so if your onboarding has anything that lasts longer, any single task that lasts longer than 45 minutes, that should be an invitation to understand how you can change it up and add an activity.
That changes a lot of things. You're saying like it should be like practice with a mentor, then come back and watch a module, then maybe meet with somebody, then maybe take a tour and then do this. So switch it up. And just like we talked about everything else, the 3 types of learners, the 4 types of personalities, switch things up to attract all senses.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, yeah, and you mentioned it with TikTok as well. Like if TikTok can't hold their attention for more than 1 minute, like short form video has absolutely changed the way that people engage. So whether it's TikTok or any other platform that does 1 minute, 2 minute videos, if you think that people who are used to learning and understanding the world through the lens of 2 minute videos are going to gain anything from sitting in a room for even 45 minutes, and you think they're processing any of that information, you're out of your mind. And you're throwing spaghetti at the wall and hoping it sticks.
Yeah, well, we typically add tests to the end, but
Well, but again, then the only thing that I'm doing is I'm getting to the point where I can regurgitate the information to pass the test.
yes.
So
Yeah, just like the safe test. Took it and forgot it the day after.
right.
Never used it again. You were talking about you run a lot of activities. What's your favorite activity? And could we run it right now? One of you, you talked about
Yeah.
writing something down.
Yeah,
What's
so there's a great activity that folks can do. This was actually I just saw this on a TikTok. I've been doing this, for the record, I've been doing this activity for like 10 years. I just saw it on a TikTok the other day. But if you have a pen, just a regular standard pen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that pen. You're going to put it in your hands just like this. So right in the webbing of your two thumbs, just like that. So this is your starting position. And then your ending position is going to be with your thumbs underneath and your forefingers on top. Okay. So you have to get from here to here. You can't take your hands off the pen. You can't throw the pen in the air. You can't go around the ends. You have to get from here to here without taking your hands off of the pen.
Oh shit, you're gonna hit me with this shit live?
So
Right.
for the sake of time, we'll go right into it. You can get that pen where you need it to do.
Wait, do I get a clue first?
What's that?
Do I get a clue first?
Shake your own hand.
Wait, do that again slower.
So you reach in like you're going to shake your own hand. Twist that pen around. You're almost there. You're about halfway. The pen does not move. The only thing that happens with the pen is whatever you consider the point end is going to end up facing the opposite way. That's what happens with the pen.
All right, hit me with the philosophy.
So the philosophy is that everybody experiences things and has experiences, and there's a repeatable pattern to the experience. Okay. So it starts, and this is called the experiential learning cycle. This is another thing that you can Google and you can learn more about. But it starts with having the experience. So we just had an experience. Folks that are on the phone that came with us had the same experience. Then what our brains do immediately is they go into reflection on that experience. You start to review what just happened. So right now, whether it's conscious or subconscious, you are going through, oh, he had me do this. I couldn't do it real quick. I was live on camera. That made me feel a certain type of way, whatever. Like, oh, you're reflecting on the activity. From the reflection, then our brains start to take all of the experiences that we've ever had in our lives and wrap it around the experience that we just had, and we create meaning. This is called abstraction. We take everything from the experience we just had, and then we put it in context of everything else that's happened in our lives, and we make some sort of meaning, and then we apply that. And so that's the last step of this cycle, is application. So we go experience, reflection, generalization, and then application. Okay. What that means is I do a thing, I find meaning in the thing, I think about how this can help me in the future, and then I apply it to the future. The very simple way to remember this is called what, so what, now what. It's how everybody in the entire world has every experience they've ever had. You do the thing, you think about the thing, you apply the things you thought about. What, so what, now what.
I feel like the most important part of that process is the reflection, because that's what tells you what you do with a thing.
Yeah, the reflection and generalization are really where you make a decision. That's when we talk about choice, that's where the choice is made. And so as a leader, this is where it's really important. You have to have an experience that allows someone to reflect effectively enough that they choose to change behavior. And so what that means is, if I sit you in front of a PowerPoint, let's talk about onboarding for a second. If I sit you in front of a PowerPoint for 45 minutes, and you learn all of the ins and outs, maybe it's the best PowerPoint that's ever been created. You learn everything that you need to know about the job that you're about to do. You go out onto the floor and you can apply maybe 10% of that. If differently, I give you the 3 key bullet points of what you need to know, and then I let you practice that, and you get the feeling, the experience, and the understanding of what it means to have success or failure at that thing. Then I put that success or failure in the context of how success and failure feels to me and has felt every other time in my life. I get rewarded for success, I get punished for failure, I get coached when I fail, I take risks. All of that wraps around the success or failure that I've just had, and I'm more informed to make a decision about changing the way that I do something. So that's why experiential learning is so important, is because I can't put something in context that I've never experienced. So until I experience it, I can't make a choice of if I'm going to change a behavior or not. So we have to get someone to experience the things that we want them to change.
I love that. It all lies in the experience.
Yeah.
Exactly what you're saying. How important is mindset and sales and leadership to you?
I think that your mindset and the choices that you make every day are probably the one of the most important parts of leadership, because there are going to be bad days, and you know this as a salesperson too. There's bad days. There's days where every single phone call led to a no. There are days where you have 1,000 things going on outside the office and you got to come in and focus and do your job. And so the mindset to me is the choices that you make about how you're going to engage. And I had a leader that used to say, be all in. There's no such thing as work life balance. There's no such thing. The only thing that you can do as a functioning human in our society is be all in on the thing that you're doing. And that I think takes positive mindset and resilience. If you don't have, this is how you get to a positive mindset. You have to have recovery built into the way that you operate, or else your mindset is going to go down the drain. That's the way the brain works. It's called neuroplasticity. If you don't have time to recover, then you are going to wear out the thing that brings you like positivity in your mindset, right? So if I'm positive every single day, and then I get a string of days in a row that are terrible and I haven't built in any recovery for myself, just like a muscle, if I overwork a muscle, I'm going to tear that muscle. Mindset's the same way. If I overwork a positive mindset, it's going to tear and it's going to break, and I'm not going to be able to use it anymore.
Mm.
And so we have to have times built in for recovery. For me, recovery is come home. I don't drink anymore. So I come home, I exercise, I spend time with my kids, right? That's recovery for me. There are some times where recovery for me is come home, put on a show that I've seen 10,000 times so that I don't have to think about it and scroll through my phone. That's another form of recovery. Recovery doesn't have to be all this puppy dog and horse shit. It has to be something that works for you to allow your brain to reset so that your mindset can stay positive. Give your positive mindset a break by building in the right recovery time for yourself.
I love that. So you're saying sometimes maybe the reason for a negative mindset is because you didn't give yourself a chance to recover
Yeah.
from the negativity. And sometimes all you need is a little bit of a break or a pattern interrupt or something of that sort to get yourself out of the funk, give yourself that little bit of rest and laziness that you need
Mm-hmm.
to get back up and be curious again
Yeah.
and to do
This
that
is why
often.
this is why COVID had such an impact on people, is because we had a minimum of 2 years where even the folks with the most positive mindset did not get a break, did not get a chance to recharge, because it was constant, right? No matter what, no matter your stance or whatever, I don't care what your stance was. This isn't a political statement. There was a constant pressure of some sort for almost 2 years. And that's why so many people struggled through that time. But we see that same thing, especially in sales environments all the time. Because when was the last time you showed up at your sales job and somebody said, we're not going to worry about goals today? That doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so you have to figure out if this is your chosen career, highly lucrative, but highly taxing on a positive mindset. If you don't figure out the other times for you to build in recovery for your positive mindset, it's going to suffer at work.
100%. I'm doing a lot of presentations where I try to throw in videos, I try to throw in activities. So I'm making them very interactive and different.
Mm-hmm.
Although I still find sometimes I need a pattern interrupt in the middle of a 45-minute training or meeting or kickoff. I try to cut it down now to 40, 38 minutes. But what are some go-tos you have in the middle of a meeting to just wake people up?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the one of my favorites is the wallet scavenger hunt or the desk scavenger hunt. Most folks, if they're in an office, either in your wallet or at your desk, you have three things that you could use to tell more stories about yourself. And so take 10 minutes and say, hey, quick wallet scavenger hunt, grab three things out of your wallet or your purse that describe you. And then you don't have to listen to everybody. That'd take 2 hours to hear everybody's all three things. Pick 3 or 4 folks each time and say, tell me about one of the things that you chose. Oh, this was a sticker that my son gave me this morning before I came into work because he's super into Superman right now, and he gave me this Superman sticker, right? Like those are the little things that we carry with us every day that can start to build community and start to build those recharge times for our mindset right into the day. So the wallet scavenger hunt is a really good one. Take 30 seconds to do that in your next meeting. You'll see some traction there. I think the other one that works really well is something called a walkie talkie. So if you have partnered skills that you need to work on. Don't do it sitting at a table or sitting at a desk. Stand up and use the space of your office. There's only two rules for a walkie-talkie. You have to be moving and you have to be talking. Outside of that, talk about whatever you want, but you have to be moving the entire time and you have to be talking. Two things that come from that. Number one, brains connect and anchor learning to movement. And so if we're moving the whole time, the likelihood of us retaining a message is going to be much higher. Number two, when I'm walking next to somebody, I can't look at them. People are more honest when they're not making eye contact. And so you get deeper conversation faster when you walk and talk instead of when you stand still and stare at each other.
I love that. I'm going to be calling you for some more as well.
For sure.
Lastly, you said that you help companies when they're changing over tech, which is sometimes a big thing. What are some of your go-tos when you're changing mindsets and behaviors around changing a big form of technology for a company, which is going to require a lot of change, a lot of resilience, and a lot of patience? What are some of your steps or phases you go through to get a big company moved over to, something new?
Yeah, I think the number one thing in terms of change management is you have to enroll key stakeholders early and often. And key stakeholders are often not the frontline people that are going to be using it, although they are. But the key stakeholders are like, a message often has to be championed by someone in the C-suite. And so if you're in a position that you are changing technology, someone has signed off on that, a CEO, a CFO, a chief technology officer. Make sure that you enroll them in the messaging around that change, because it is proven over and over again. I studied this in my MBA classes over and over again. It's proven that if the messaging isn't coming from the top, then it has a lower adoption rate. So you have to enroll key stakeholders at the top. Number two, you have to acknowledge the risk that people are taking by doing something new. If you think about a sales organization implementing a new technology, the people who are your top performers are the ones who have gotten most used to using the current technology. And so what you're doing is you're asking your people that have the most to lose from doing something new in terms of real dollars to do something new that is going to take them time to learn, time to get efficient at, and time to build skill in. You are literally asking them to cost themselves money by enrolling in this new technology. So you have to get them enrolled early, talk to your long-standing great performers early about the change, and provide all of the training that they need to be successful before the training goes live. There's no technology out there that is off one day and on the next day. There are pilot groups and sandboxes and all this stuff. Your top performers should be the ones involved in your rollout and implementation, because it gives them a longer road to learn it without affecting their bottom line.
I love that, man. Thank you. And it's funny because I'm about to share my screen with you. I was about to ask you for a shot at the end of the episode. Remember the shot at the end of the shot cast?
Yeah.
But if you look here, crazy 3.5 years ago.
Back to a lot is, I'm going to give you the closet, you hang the clothes in it however you want, right? Like that as people developers.
The one, you lost a lot of weight.
That's our job essentially.
About 100 pounds over the last 16 months.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to search this, it's Acez and Joshua, how to be a prisoner in life, but how not to be a prisoner in life. But also, I want you to end your shot, Josh, with talking about this, how to get people engaged: 3 types: prisoner, vacationer, and learner. Could you explain that? Yeah. And end this off for us with a nice positive shot, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. So prisoners, vacationers, and learners, whenever you do something new, people's brains automatically go into one of those 3 categories. They're a prisoner, which means that they're only going to do it because they're being told to do it. There's vacationers that are like, I'm here anyway, why not? And then there's learners, people who actively want to engage in the process. I always tell folks that I work with, I'm not concerned with which group you're starting in, because you don't control that. Your brain put you there. You don't control that. What you do control is your choice to move one category up. And so if you're a prisoner, I'm just asking you to be a vacationer. If you're a vacationer, I'm just asking you to be a learner. And if you're a learner, I'm asking you to wrap your arm around somebody and bring them with you into that category. So when we talk about prisoners, vacationers, and learners, start where you want, make the choice to move up by one category.
I love that. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate you being on the show today, man. A lot of great nuggets dropped. If you guys want to reach out to him, Joshua Best, he's on my Instagram list too if you want to find him. And also We got the website for coaching, which was 3arrowscoaching.com with the number 3.
Yep.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll have you join us some more in some of our seminars. Maybe we'll add some of your packages to the academy and we'll get you out here more, man. Really appreciate your time today. Have a great night, kind sir. And thank you everybody for joining the show.
Cheers.
Thank you. Hey, thanks so much for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Wanted to remind you to like, subscribe, and share the channel with anyone you love. And we got 2 more videos for you that are both fire. This one or this one.